31. Okay, and just as a start, I'd just like to say is Carlton had, actually it's before we went live, but this meeting is airing live. It is being recorded. The host will unmute guests during the presentation, hearing a citizen's comment agenda items. If you wonder, guests, if you have a question, you can put it into the chat and we'll address it at some point. At the appropriate point, an attendees not adhering to the guidelines may be put on hold or removed by the host. Okay, hearing that, first item.
Excuse me, Gina.
Yes.
We have an iPhone that just connected in and we don't know who that person is. We need it for our records.
Okay, whoever is on the iPhone.
It looks like they're still connecting to the audio. We might need to wait just a minute.
Oh. Okay. Okay, we can start while that person's.
They are
in.
now connected. They are now connected.
Okay, the person that just logged on into the meeting with an iPhone, could you identify yourself, please, just for our records? Okay, person on the iPhone. Janet Hanson, is that you? I know you sometimes come on an iPhone.
That's Barbara.
All right, here's Barbara. Okay, thank you, Barbara. First item on the agenda is chair's announcements. I would like to welcome two of our new members. Jeff Merriman, am I saying that right, Jeff?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, from the Historic Commission and Maureen Nation from Open Space. I appreciate, and the rest of the committee appreciates too, both of you stepping up to serve on the CPC. So we appreciate it and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Next thing is we're supposed to reorganize the first meeting after July 1st. Seeing as we didn't have a July meeting, that's up right now. Reorganization. We have for new members, we have a chair and a vice chair. There's also a treasurer's position, but we don't usually fill that because we get all of our financial reports directly from the finance department. Okay, so we'll open it with nominations for chair.
I nominate Gina as chair.
Second.
Okay, and yeah, other nominations for chair. Okay, hearing none. Josh, roll call.
Gina,
Yes.
Carlton,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Nominations for
Congratulations.
I think nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Carlton Hunt.
I second that.
Okay, other nominations? Okay, hearing none. Josh, roll call, please.
Gina,
Yes.
Carlton,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your vote of confidence. In re-elected, speaking for Carlton too, for reorganizing for us as chair and vice chair again. Thank you. Okay, next is.
Carlton.
What was that, Josh?
I said congratulations to Carlton for.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Bill. I thought you were Josh.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Okay, next is public comment. Any guests, feel free to jump in. Okay, hearing none. Approval of minutes for June 22nd. Josh sent them out as part of the packet.
I move to accept.
I will second.
Okay, Carlton and Stacy, thank you. Discussion? Okay, you're all in favor of approving the minutes for June 22nd as presented? Josh, roll call?
Gina,
Yes.
Carlton,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Bill,
He's not there right now.
oh, okay. Stacy,
Yes.
Maureen,
They
I'm gonna
can't, she
abstain.
has to abstain. She has to
Yep.
abstain.
and Jeff.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Actually, Jeff would be an abstention too, because he wasn't on.
Okay, thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, next is review of financial reports. You are sent out the ones, financial reports ending June 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year. According to the finance department, there wasn't much done in July, and they're trying to catch up with transferring all the information. So that's why you have the June 30th ones, plus it shows what shape we're in at the end of the fiscal year. Any questions on Carlton? Question?
Yeah, I just want to let the folks that are new to the committee understand that we have two forms that we look at. There's actually three here right now. There is one called a balance sheet. That's basically the balance in our various accounts. And we have an set of asset accounts. Those are basically, they're trying to reflect money that comes in. The asset total, there's a liability. There's taxes that have been paid in. Don't get confused by the red numbers. That actually means that we've had income from taxes and arrears and levies that came in. And then on the liability total, the fund balance, we have a number of account numbers that we keep our money in. And basically there's a fund balance for continuing reserves. That's $1,727,290. That's basically cash that we can use for any one of the four areas we deal with. There's also a CPA reserve for expenditures. That's essentially our admin account. Basically, we can fund various things out of our admin account without going to the town council for appropriation. We currently, in the future fiscal year, will be $40,000 that we can spend under that account in FY20. Josh, which year are we in? FY20?
23.
Thanks. We also have a fund balance in the open space reserve. That money is reserved for open space, and there's $29,627 in it. There's a fund balance for historic projects. There's $229,000 and change in that particular one. And then we have one for community housing. That one is $309,300. And then we have an undesignated fund balance of $1,136,805. So essentially what we see in our fund total is we have about $3.4 million in our available money for us to spend. And that's essentially the amount that we're going to have coming into fiscal year 23, July 1st. But also we will then have appropriations that we made as part of the annual budget. So that will show up in the next accounting that we have. The next piece is the EOY revenue budget to actual. That's basically showing the money that has come in from the three areas. The real estate surcharge, we have 1%, 2% on real estate over $100,000 of assessment. So that money is a major portion of the funds that we receive. There's other lien estimates. There's P&I taxes. There's state revenue match. Basically, the state annually matches based on fees that are uh, um, gathered. But when a deed, a registration has gone into the registry of deeds, there's a $50 charge on that, I believe. And so the state then takes that into a trust fund. That trust fund gets divvied up in November of each year to the communities. And we recently had 35% in the last year. We anticipate that amount again this coming year. And then there's also one of the things they're tracking is a grant for the Stiles and Hart Park area. The state has given us $315,000, the town $315,000. And since we voted and the town council voted, we make a recommendation to the town council. The town council then votes it. And the town council voted $1.3 million on our recommendation for the Stiles and Hart Improvement Project. That's open space and recreation. Basically, that $315,000 comes back into the CPA money and funds. So we only are paying out of our town revenues, CPA revenues, about $1 million for the upgrades to that park. And the end of year expense budget to actual, that basically shows how much we budgeted last fiscal year against what we actually did. An example would be administrative expenses. We budgeted $7,000 in that particular account, and we actually spent that amount. So that's a zero sum at that point. And the rest of it's pretty much self-explanatory. If you look down at the bottom of that particular list, item 584010, that's the Stiles and Hart Improvement Project, $1.3 million. Basically, the actual on that shows zero, and it shows available at the end of FY22. So that's in a nutshell what we look at each month. And hopefully, if you guys have questions, we can do it now, or it's up to Gina. We can defer it to later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Carlton. One thing on the last form that Carlton was talking about, that shows the encumbrances and what was left at the end of the year. Just to clarify, the very bottom one that says BWPL, that's the Bridgewater Public Library, preservation. So that's what that was, just in case you're wondering. One thing just to note for the new folks, how the money gets into the fund balances, the open space, historic preservation, and community housing and designated funds and administrative funds. We have in the spring, as part of the town's budget process, the finance director estimates what we're going to have for revenue for the next year based on past years. And that includes tax money, the surcharge on your real estate taxes, as well as Carlton mentioned, the monies from our surcharges at the registries of deeds. We then have to, with the state in the Mass General law is set up, we have to put at least 10% of that estimated income into open space and recreation, historic preservation, and community housing, and at least 5% into administrative funds. What we did this year, we looked at what we knew about 4 upcoming projects, so we tried to be as realistic as we could to put into those funds. What we don't put into those funds goes into undesignated. But one thing to note, off of the total income, we have to pay the bonds that you see in, like the encumbrances, like Keith Homestead and Academy Building. Those come because they were negotiated when the bonds were taken out, when the money was awarded. That has to be paid right off the top from the income. So we look at the balance. So that's another nutshell for you, just how we put the money in. Any questions on those financial reports? Okay, if you have some, anybody, especially new folks, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you understand them. Not always the easiest forms, and I have to say it took us a while to get them to. Okay, the next forms you have a CP1, a CP2. I guess it's just CP1 and CP2. Those are forms, community preservation reports that get sent by our finance department into the Department of Revenue. Again, it's required by the Mass General Law. So between the assessors and the finance department, they prepare the reports and submit them to the state. So there's what that is, and it kind of summarizes what's on the others too. But basically, we're in good shape. We have roughly $3.4 million. So we're doing well with that. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, now that we've probably overwhelmed everybody with the finance reports, we'll move on to applications received. Summer Street property, that's the taking by eminent domain of the mobile station property. And I believe we have Town Manager Michael Dutton on with us tonight that can speak about that.
Thank you, Gina. So let me just give you a little bit of background. It's a little sensitive because portions of what's going on are reserved for executive session with the town council. And obviously you can imply from the title on the agenda item that it's a taking of property on Summer Street, known as locally as the old mobile station. We have town council voted a certain amount of money to offset some of the expenses associated with that potential taking. And so I don't, without getting into the details, there are rules about how we fund community preservation projects with community preservation funds, and how those funds might essentially supplant otherwise voted funds. So you can't, in a nutshell, you can't use community preservation funds to supplant otherwise appropriated funds. So there is a concern that Gina and Carlton raised that potentially the town council appropriating capital funds to offset some of the expenses associated with this this property, but not specifically allocated to this particular quote unquote project. Regardless, they looked at that and were concerned that it might be what's referred to as the word that I can never pronounce.
Supplantation.
Supplantation. Yes, thank you.
I
It's
couldn't
just
say
one of those
prepared,
words.
so.
It's one of those words I have a problem with. So anyway, while this is timely, and we would like to get this going certainly before the end of the calendar year, my recommendation on this would be to postpone this to your next meeting. It gives me an opportunity to collect more information, give it to you concerning this particular project, and so that you can vote with the full range of knowledge. So that would be my request. It is the town council has voted, the town council has heard first reading of the taking. So that is not a particular secret at this point. But I do have more information to give the committee before you go ahead and vote on any recommendation for an appropriation. So encourage you to defer till the next meeting on this one.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for your discussion. Michael mentioned we did have a couple questions that we spoke to him about, and I agree that we should have more information before we take action on it. Any discussion?
I concur. I don't know if we need a formal motion, but I would like to have a sense from the committee as to whether or not they agree with postponing.
Okay, CPC members, don't everybody jump in at once.
I agree with postponing.
Good, thanks, Harry.
Yeah, we need
No.
some more information, so I think we should postpone.
I agree.
Okay,
I know what you're talking about. I mean, I know about the mobile, but I'm not sure what issues are that they're causing you to postpone it. But if that's what you all want, then I will agree with it.
right, in a nutshell, and I know we're giving you lots of nutshells tonight for everybody, just don't throw them at us when you get off the meeting. The main thing is because the town has voted money for the project, and if we approve it, it's what the Department of Revenue, they call it now Michael has me not saying the word supplementation.
Yeah.
Just meaning that you have to take the town money first before the CPC money. So it's just clarifying that the way the funds, there are a couple ways to go about it, and that's what we're looking for, is just clarification on
Just
it.
to clarify that, yeah.
Right,
All right.
correct.
And I will add, we can if you haven't seen the application from the town manager, please let Josh know and we'll get that application out to you as quickly as possible. But I do concur
I
that we
believe it.
move on.
Okay, I believe it was all part of the packet that went out.
Yep.
Okay, great. Do we need a vote for that to postpone it? No.
I have to defer to other people. I don't know.
Okay, Michael, do we need a vote?
You do not need a vote. No,
Okay.
you can chair's prerogative to put that on the next agenda.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next thing is the Central Square Congregational Church. The application for that phases 2 and 3, that's still on hold. It's just carried, as we do have the application to note that it is there, that we do have it.
And just so new committee members understand, we've been working with the church and we have awarded, and the town council has voted $200,000 for repairs on the steeple. That requires a conservation restriction or historic preservation restriction on the building. And we are in the process of working on that. We have some discussions with a company in Rhode Island called PAL, P-A-L, and we need to have a conversation with them in terms of the restriction language, et cetera, and the town has to work on some restrictions. So right now, I would suggest we not try to vote on this or discuss it at this point until we get those other items taken care of. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, I agree. That's my thought too. So we're still working on phase 1 with the church. Okay, let's see, funded project updates, the library archival project. And we had an email from Allison, I'm going to say her name wrong,
Skirkle.
She's the, what is it?
I think it's Skirkle. She's the archivist that the library hired to handle our archiving of various documents, et cetera. And she was the author of a grant request that we recommended and the town awarded $89,000 to them for two things. One was preservation of some documents that are of historic significance, and the other part of it is to acquire some preservation or restoration protective library display cases. And I'm not sure where that's at. Maybe Gina has more.
The update that Allison sent today said she's gotten word from the NEDCC, which is the New England document something, that the John Townsend certificate is next in line for conservation. There were 4 documents that we had approved to be preserved and digitized. And I didn't realize till she said it in the email today that John Townsend was Flora Little's father. Most of us know Flora and Walter Little they lived on Summer Street, and the Little Park across from their house, adjacent to the mobile station, but on Plymouth Street, is land from them, and the park is named after them. The town library is named the Flora and Walter Little Library. It was built with funds that were donated by the Littles. Not part of our award. They were also looking for lighting for the display cases. That wasn't part of the award because it really wasn't historic preservation. But she did note that even though it's not CPC funded, she wanted to let us know as part of the overall project that they're basically almost done with the lighting installation. So her projects are coming right along. Okay, next, Stiles and Hot Parkland improvements. Michael, putting you up for that one too.
I don't have a whole lot of update on that one. Federal reviewers have been coming back to us with lots of interesting, very particular questions. So we've answered over the last probably couple of months, we've answered, I'd say about 5 or 6 requests for more information. Nothing, nothing, at least from my point of view, nothing, no huge issues. The questions are fairly straightforward. So we're hoping to hear from them, I think, no later than December. So hopefully before that, so we can get the project up and going full steam. But that, other than that, I don't have a whole lot of information.
Okay, thank you, Colin.
Michael, have we received the grant or is it still being finalized?
No, the short answer is it's still being finalized. So the state, we submit the grant to the state agency, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. They review it and then make a recommendation to the National Park Service whether or not they would fund. Obviously, they make the recommendation to the feds, and then the feds take it and do their own review of it, which is fairly exhaustive. So we have not received it yet. Generally, when the state government recommends it, 99 times out of 100, something is awarded. Might not always be the amount that's been asked, but something will be awarded. So we should hear within the next 2 months.
Good, thank you. Next is the Central Square Congregational Church. As Colin mentioned, we're working with PAL, the agency that's doing the historic, the deed restriction. And for new folks, a deed restriction is for a private, nonprofit or private property that receives community preservation funds has to have a deed restriction put on it so that if the church is sold or different renovations are made, those funds would need to be turned back to the town. And it has to be held not in the name of the organization that owns the property. In this case, I believe that the Historic Commission has offered to hold the deed restriction once it's set in place. So we are working with PAL, the people that are putting together the deed restriction. Once they finish, it will come back to the town. We're working, not just us, we're working in conjunction with the Central Square Congregational Church folks on that. Once it comes back, I believe our town attorney will file the deed restriction. Then they're set to get to work because they can't start work till the deed restriction is in place.
Yeah, I think that it's the Historic District Commission that will be holding the deed restriction.
Yes, thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
I tend to, when I say, I know which one I'm thinking, but when I say it, I tend to combine
Everybody,
the two.
yes.
Combine the two. Okay. Next is the pickleball courts. Pickleball courts are on Wally Kruger Way, which is the street that has the Cronin Health Center and the Senior Center. They back up to the new school that's being built on South Street. Those were funded a good part by the CPC with CPA funds. They're done, getting lots of use. I know I've played, a few people that are on the call I know have played. So they're done. We're just waiting for a final report for the,
Gina, I noticed in the accounting finance report that there's some money left over from that. Do we expect that money to come back to the CPC?
I believe so. And what happens is if all the bills are paid, that's part of the final report, just to make sure everything's paid. Once the finance director is informed that all the bills have indeed been paid, he'll just issue the money back to the CPC, whichever fund it came from. Okay, so that will automatically, anything left will go back. Okay, next is the memorial building. And for new folks, the memorial building is next to the library. You can see it's having tons of renovations done. And that was partially funded by CPC. And put Michael on the spot. Michael, aren't you glad you joined us tonight?
Absolutely. The memorial building, I can tell you, just give you a very quick update. Work is progressing very slowly. There are material supply issues there, which is why it's going so slowly. And there will be more material supply issues moving over the next couple of months. So we don't project that project to be done until mid-October now. It's also gone over budget. So we're going to have to come back. We're not looking for CPC funds for the overages, but we will be going back to the council for more capital funds to offset that the cost overages. So that is basically it. For those that don't know, the memorial building been on the planning stages for a long time. In fact, money was voted in 2015, I believe, to do that building, supplemented by capital appropriations from the council, and then supplemented by appropriations from water and sewer department, and then also supplemented with an appropriation from the community preservation funds. So multiple funding mechanisms to get that building done. and done right. And nothing has changed in the plan. It's just taking longer than expected to actually get it complete. That's about what I got.
Elton?
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for that update. I have, as I mentioned in our meeting yesterday, I have put together a PowerPoint because I've been photographing. CPC funding is specific to the accessibility, the handicap accessibility parts of the project. And I've been trying to photograph that because I've been fascinated by the construction process. So I've been photo documenting that over time, and I have PowerPoint at some point. I'm more than happy to show the committee and the town, or make it available to the town. One thing I will mention, Michael, is that we are still waiting for your maintenance plan. And I know we've received some, what I call standard operating procedure input. We're not looking for standard operating procedures. We're just simply looking for what you're going to look at, on what frequency, and that kind of maintenance thing. So we're not looking for a document that has all the SOPs attached for it, if that's the hold up on that. Thank you.
Okay, no, and that's a good reminder. We do, one of the holdups is on the material are some of the HVAC and related items. So the contractor is trying to source different alternatives right now. So one of the reasons that we haven't gotten specifics, and we want to give you some specifics, is that we're not absolutely sure exactly what HVAC components will be in the building, or hot water heater, for example, or so forth. So so we want to give you, whatever the manufacturer is recommending for maintenance, we want to translate into our maintenance plan. So that's one of the holdups. So
thank you. And also, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we do. We're transitioning to. Excuse me. We're transitioning to a building maintenance software system that will take all of the items that require maintenance and/or replacement over a period of time, and plug those into a software so that we'll be able to click and give you, exactly what the maintenance, essentially the maintenance plan, what you're talking about, at least in terms of a maintenance plan.
So that sounds like an operational manual, not a maintenance plan.
Probably, well, yeah, a little both actually, because
again, like I say, I think a high level item, maybe 3 or 4 pages, would be more than sufficient to satisfy at this point. But I also, since you mentioned it, I chair the Energy Committee, and if you are needing money for those HVA systems, I do believe that Green Communities could provide some funding for the HVA systems if you apply for it, and that due date is October 7th.
We will we'll look at that. I know that we are actually reusing some of the Green Communities. We're reusing all the Green Communities components that went into that building prior. So so that part is good if the overages are related to that, and I actually don't think they are. I think just the delay is related to that. But I'll let you know. Probably outside the scope of this discussion, but if that's the case, I definitely will reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, you said there weren't any major changes in the design of the building. Are there any changes in materials, for example, because of the budget, that would necessitate the towns coming back before the HDC for any further approvals?
Good question. I'm not aware of any changes in materials. I think, once we got the HDC approval and we got the appropriations, and you've probably, this committee's heard me say this before, we're going to do it the way we planned it, and we're going to do it right. So it lasts, for another 150 years or whatever it is from 1881 to now. So we don't want to do what has been done in the past, and that's just sort of, do a patchwork job of it. We want to do the job right and do it so it lasts forever, as far as we're concerned.
Well, we are there if you need us for anything.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Just as a little background for the new folks, the memorial building with its renovations, it's been used for a number of things over the past. It was originally built, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, after, was it the Civil War that it was
Yes,
built?
it's a memorial to the fallen citizens. I wrote this all up at one point. It's a memorial to the fallen citizens during the Civil War of Bridgewater. It was put in place as Memorial 1, 2 as a library for the town, and 3 as a place to display historic artifacts for the town. That's what the building was done, and the library actually has the write-up I did on that, if anybody's interested on the history of it. That said, that's basically where we're at with it. Because of changes, et cetera, the town administrators and manager have determined that they want to use that building for offices and also for storage of historic documents or other documents that the town is required to hold, and also a digitization center. So folks remember what's going on there, but also folks that didn't know, you now know a bit more than you did before.
Great, thank you. Stacy, did you have a question? No? Okay, thank you. Next is the Macaulay School. Michael, you're up again.
So again, I'll give a very quick background. Macaulay School, we put the Macaulay School out to bid for any reason that prospective bidders would be interested in buying it. And I think most people here know that the school sat there for about almost 20 years, I think. Well, it was more than 20 years empty. And it was subject to vandalism and so forth. So we put it out to bid. We got one response, and the one response was for housing. It had to be a 40B application because of the zoning. And so long story short, it went through the ZBA process, went through asbestos and other hazard material abatement process, and is being converted into, I can't remember the number of housing apartment units. 58 sticks in my mind, but
53.
Confusing that. 53. Thanks. Thank you. So so that is progressing. It's picking up a little bit of steam. They had a slowdown in construction due to some labor shortages among the subcontractors, but they're, according to the building inspectors, the various inspectors I've spoken to, they're doing a very good job, a quality job constructing it. I think some of the members of this committee have taken a tour. I have not, so I haven't seen the inside of it, but that is coming. I think they anticipate getting a rental office up and going later this fall. And I don't know if they're going to meet their self-imposed deadline of December for that project, because it does look like it has more to, a little more than that to go. But that several months ago was their sort of self-imposed deadline. So that's, I think, where that one stands. It's a little different. I will also tell you, it's a little slightly different. Our well, doesn't matter. That's about the building update. That's about as much as I know about the building update.
Great, thank you. I would like to, as Michael said, some of us did a tour back a few months ago of the building. Since they probably more than likely have done so much more, we could possibly try to arrange for another tour to walk through to see what's done, but we'll look into that. Okay, moving, any questions on any of the funded comments on funded project updates? Okay, hearing none. Eligibility forms received. We did receive, and we discussed it in part at the June meeting about the generators from the housing authority. They had put in an eligibility form. We had discussed if they are allowed under using CPC funds. And speaking with the director of the housing authority and relaying our thoughts on it, she has withdrawn the application for the generators. She didn't want to put us in a compromising situation that we approve something or not approve it. So she has withdrawn that, and further down we'll talk about the housing authority has submitted a new eligibility form, but we'll talk about that under new business. Anticipated projects eligibility form has been approved. We haven't received the application yet. The only one in that category is Hanson's Farm, and that is in process. I believe the appraisal is set, the survey is set. That isn't progress. Michael, anything to add for that?
No, I think just clarify the according to the Hansons, the survey is complete. The survey is required before we can commission an appraisal, because the survey will identify specific buildings, houses, for example, that they want to exclude from the future agricultural or conservation restriction. And potentially other pieces of property that they may, on that overall piece, that they may have some plan for in the future, which they're perfectly allowed to do. So once we get the survey, then we can send that off to the appraiser. We've had discussions with the appraiser. He's all lined up and ready to go. So as soon as we get that survey that we need to get, we'll forward that along, and he can appraise the property, and then we can go from there.
Michael, did you figure out, excuse me, Gina, did you figure out whether or not the money we approved under the admin account last fiscal year actually is carrying over to this fiscal year? Have you had a chance?
I've had a chance. I'm almost sure that it carried over, but Lori is out this week. She'll be back early next week, so I'll confirm that as soon as she gets back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right, I believe Tony's out as well this week too. They're both out. Okay, good. Just to explain to the new folks, what we're talking about for Hanson's Farm is they're looking, we have another piece of farm property actually to the Marine Needs Farm that would put a agricultural restriction, conservation restriction. Conservation, thank you. Conservation restriction that we actually, CPC bought the property for the town bought it using CPC funds. The restriction says so that they can't build on it, they can't sell it, they can't anything. It has to be kept as open space. Marine Needs is off the North Street. There are some trails out in the back there. What the Hansons are looking to do is to sell their property the same as the Marine Needs did, sell it to the town with restriction on it. Their intent is to still farm some of the land, keep, as Michael said, the houses. I believe they want to keep Sugar Hill Dairy and the garden store. So that's all being worked out, but basically that's what that is. It's preserved to preserve the as open space, the Hanson's Farm.
Yeah, Gina, I just want to clarify some language. We are not
Mhm.
purchasing the property. We are purchasing the
Okay.
development rights to the property.
Right,
And because
okay,
we're purchasing the development rights, we are we would, as part of that process, and Mr. Dutton and a town attorney are working on a deed restriction for the property, which again needs to have the survey done, the appraisal done, that kind of thing. But we are purchasing the
right,
development rights, and therefore you will not see whatever that's zoned for, housing or whatever, you'll not see houses on there if this goes through.
right. Thank you for the clarification. Possible project updates, purchase of the Broad Street property. What that is, it's adjacent to Stiles and Hart Parkland on Broad Street, which actually has 3 entrances. There's one by the river, which I believe is the water department access road. But you can also go in that way. It's almost across from College Town Cleaners. There's another access spot halfway up the hill. There's a curb cut. I wouldn't advise driving over it unless you have a Mack truck right now. It's a huge drop. And if you have a regular car, or I have a Forester, and I wouldn't drive over it. But the other access point is on High Street. However, there's no parking there. Next to the Chinese restaurant on Broad Street is it's 2 parcels that the town is in negotiations to purchase that for parking and handicap accessibility. Michael, anything more to add for that?
Nope, I think you articulated that just fine. It's 2 pieces, 2 adjoining same size lots right after the Chinese restaurant. It's where there are a couple of billboards, or 1 billboard there, I think, currently. And we're looking to add to the overall Stiles and Hart property, and then possibly use those 2 pieces for the parking that we're anticipating, more formalized parking for Stiles and Hart use. So, but that is that should be coming to you. That application will be coming to you probably by your next meeting. That's what I anticipate.
Great. Okay. I personally can't wait to see that done. That and the improvements. It's my neighborhood. I think it's a great place to walk. There's ponds there. There's wildlife, which people see, but always seems to elude me when I'm out walking. But it's a great spot, as are all of our parklands. Okay, next is the town hall, also known as originally the townhouse, roof repair and restoration. Kelton, do you want to update?
Yeah, I'll do this so Michael can take a break. Yeah, the town clerk applied for a grant to, the roof is in bad condition. She applied for she's now chairing the reuse committee, let's put it that way. And then, so one of her first actions and the committee's first actions was to see if they can find money to get the roof repaired, because it's really potentially leaking. The Mass Historic, I think that's correct, awarded a grant. They have come down, they visited with the town manager, the town clerk, and we have to hire a architect, a historic architect, which I believe the town is engaged to actually put the final design work. And I understand, here's where Michael gets to pick it up, but basically that project is not a CPC request at this point, but it's just an FYI, because down the road, there may be some requests for some historic restoration things. But right now, I believe the bulb is in the park are both in the town manager's hands in terms of an RFP for the roofing.
You correct, Carlton. That's perfect. And we have to await final design plans from the architect, which are probably not too far out, and then approval of those plans from MHC before we can actually go out to bid on the actual work. It is not, right now, it's not a community preservation project. However, given the rapid escalation of construction costs over the last, 6, 8, 10 months, we may very well have to come to CPC to look for some money to offset what we already have. We've got $100,000 appropriated by the town council, and we've got, I believe it was 75,000 from MHC. So we've got $175,000 to do that project. And again, it's we'll see where it's so hard to guess where prices are coming in on almost everything. In fact, I was talking to estimators just this week, and they're throwing their hands up because prices are absolutely all over the place. So, but in this case, it's essentially a low bid proposition from qualified contractors, and once we get that amount, if it's within the 175, off we go. If it's not, and it's over 175, we may very well be coming to CPC for some what I hope would be minor funding. So that's what I got on that one.
Thank you, Michael. I just wanted to correct a statement I made. The town applied for the grant. Town clerk who wrote it helped write it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. Administrative account updates. A couple things that we had voted to is eligible is the start of a project. We have voted from the administrative account. We can do studies from that. Funds that CPC votes from the administrative account do not need to go through the town council. Most of our, I think Carlton has said before, we make recommendations, the town council approves. They have 3 options. They can approve it for what we recommend, they can approve it for less, or they can deny it. Things through the administrative account don't need to go through the council, past the council. First one that we approved was a study at the Jennings Hill Cemetery. Jennings Hill Cemetery is on the corner of Plain Street and High Street. It's an old cemetery. Stones have been vandalized, knocked over, trucks or cars have driven like right through the fence and through the cemetery. So they would like to put into the CPC an application, but for them to figure out what they actually need done, we approved to do a study on that. Last I heard, and unfortunately, no one from the Jennings Hill Cemetery Committee is here tonight, that they were trying to touch base. They had touched base at one point, but they're trying to schedule to have a top cemetery stone preservationist, for lack of a better term. I'm sure he has a better name than that. For him to advise on it and also to teach the Jennings Hill people how to restore the gravestones, so they can do it themselves and not have to hire somebody to do it. I have no update on that other than they were trying to touch base again to schedule.
I reached out to them this week and have not heard back from them at all. And this is another one of those, we voted it last year. I don't know if the money was set aside or if we have to revote for that this year, and we can deal with that offline.
Right. Okay, the next is the senior center. we voted for a design study for recreational areas, trails, community gardens. What the goal is of the senior center is behind the senior center, there's trails that are there that were built by an Eagle Scout years ago. It's to improve those, to put trails around the senior center, completely around the senior center, possibly community gardens for next year. I was informed by Emily Williams, the director of the senior center recently, that I believe they had the contract and Michael signed it with Melissa Desjardins, who's our design person for, somebody help me with the word. I can't think of the word, but she's the design expert.
Landscape architect.
Thank
She's
you.
a
That's what I
landscape
was
architect.
trying to think of. It went right out of my brain. Okay, she's the landscape architect. The contract has been signed with her. I haven't seen the schedule. Emily was going to send it to me. But she has a schedule all drawn out. There'll be public input, and yes, I am close to the train. If you can hear the train whistles going. But they will have meetings with the public, meetings with folks from the senior center, to get input from everyone before something's decided what they want. So that's in process and that's coming along good.
So based on that, we may see an application from the senior center in terms of potentially some recreation and well, I would call it recreation needs.
Right. I wouldn't expect it in a hurry because I believe by the time Melissa has her meetings with different groups for the input, I want to say, and Michael saw the contract, so if you remember, Michael, I want to say it was around December that Emily said they'd be done with everything. Do you remember? I
don't, Gina. I don't, unfortunately.
Okay. But I know it was months away that it was going to take for the whole study.
It is it's designed to be a, sort of a community process with a lot of community input. So that's generally takes some time.
Right. Thank you. Okay, the next thing is the annual public hearing. We need to, I keep looking outside because I have a contractor and he left some wood outside. I keep thinking I hear rain. Okay, annual public hearing. The way the Mass General Law is set up for community preservation, the Community Preservation Act, CPCs have to have, by virtue of the law, an annual public hearing. We last had ours in February. It was a virtual one in February of, I believe it was February 2021. So we're due to have one this year. So we need to think about that. What we do is.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I think the committee's pretty busy and tied up, and to actually put together an effective program, we need to hire an expert in that area. And I don't know, I have somebody in mind, but I'm not going to put a name out there because I think we'd have to put a bid out or an RFP out. But anyway, I think we should get some professional help given in terms of the community involvement and reaching out to people. I don't know how other people feel about it, but that's my thought. And we probably need to get that moving pretty quick if we're going to get it by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. I know Michael's office is busy, very busy. I hesitate to ask them to like help with that. Michael, you folks can think about it. Your office or as Carlton said, if we hire someone to put together the whole presentation. Last year, I believe we did it ourselves. I don't think we had Jennifer Golson last year. The year before it was.
We did not have a
Jennifer?
professional from external.
Okay, so that was us that did it last year. The year before in 2020, which was the week before, you know what broke out. It was done by a professional that we're under contract with for consulting, and she put it. One of her folks put it together for us. There's something for us to think about, but we do need to get it going.
So I'll ask it in a little bit different way. Who's going to volunteer on this committee to actually orchestrate that committee or that meeting?
Okay, nobody's jumping up. Michael, your office, as I said, is really busy too.
Gina, Michael had to actually get off.
Oh,
I can
okay.
I can talk with him on it and see what we can do though.
Is it general
Okay,
practice? Is it
great.
general practice to hire professionals to do these public meetings? I know Gina said we did it last time. Have we done it in years past?
I can answer that.
Some of the ones. Go ahead, Kelton. Oh, okay.
We have hired, we've had a professional support CPC in terms of this kind of project and thinking in the past.
Say that again. Sorry, I missed that.
We have had a professional actually set up the meeting and do the facilitation and all the work that needed to happen and to get that meeting going together in the past.
Right. One thing
was this-
to note.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just going to say, was that part of the job description of the consultant that we had in the past?
Correct. That's what I was just going to say. It was Jennifer Golson. I think
Right.
Jennifer Golson Associates. I'm not sure the proper name of her company.
That's correct.
She was under contract with the town for different committees, including CPC. So that was part of her hours with us that she put it together. As far as going out and hiring somebody specifically to put together the public hearing, I don't think it's common to hire someone from the outside.
Well,
Not saying it can't be done.
it was probably easy for Jennifer to do because she had been involved in the meetings and she knew about the projects that had been funded and on and on and on and on.
Correct.
And we don't
Correct.
have a consultant at the moment, do we?
We don't. She withdrew. Her forte was in housing trusts. She did the community preservation, covered all the areas. She had folks working for her. When COVID hit, she lessened her staff because towns just weren't doing projects and things. She probably, I don't know, roughly a year and a half ago or so, about that, because I think her contract had expired in May of probably 2020. And she opted not to renew her contracts with any of the towns. She covered a lot of towns in this area. She made the decision not to renew any of her contracts for general CPC to concentrate on housing.
Right.
And
she has increased her staff now. And I will only point I'll make is her firm wrote and developed and worked on our and prepared our 5-year plan, which we're 2.5 years into right now.
Correct.
So this is another point for new folks on. We have a 5-year plan that is supposed to be referred to in terms of any applications we receive, et cetera, to make sure it fits within that general area that we thought would be important. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I would say by September that we finalize the plans, a date, get it set. Gives us a couple months to work on it.
It actually gives us 1 month if you said September.
True. Okay, into October, because I would try not to have it. My suggestion would be not to have it in December.
Let's make it a top priority for next September's meeting, unless the committee, and really you all need to chime in, want to move this forward more quickly through a motion process.
Carlton
Okay.
and Gina, could either one of you reach out? Could either one of you reach out to Jennifer Goldson and ask her if she'd be interested
Sure, I can do
in
that.
running a meeting like that, or one of her associates?
I'll shoot her an email, Harry. Good idea. Yeah, I shoot her an email to see if she's interested. Something to think about if we wanted in person or virtual. 2020, when we did it in person at the senior center, we had lots and lots of people. When we did it virtual, we had a lot of people too, so it could go either way. So that's something to think about, but I will reach out to Jennifer. We'll make that a priority for the September meeting. Okay. And once we decide, Josh can post it and advertise it for us. Okay.
And again, I just want to say procurement requirements, Michael's not here, but I know under a certain dollar amount that you can do 3 call bids. Between that and $25,000, you have to do a little bit more, and over 25, you have to do a formal, seriously formal thing. So we'll need to work with the town manager. But yes, first of all, we need to find out if Goldson is available. But at the same time, we can't guarantee her that she would have the job. So we'll go from there.
Right. And back to when she opted not to renew any of her contracts, which were put out to bid. She received the bid and she opted not to participate anymore. We looked into, and the town manager looked into, talked to his associates in other towns, and they just aren't people that do that type of consulting anymore, at least in this area. So that's something to think about, that if Jennifer doesn't do it, to find someone else that does, which I think would be a chore. Not saying it's impossible, but sounds like a chore. But I will reach out to Jennifer to see if she's interested. Okay, new business. Eligibility forms received, which is probably what people are here for, that sat and listened to the rest of the meeting. First one is the NIP open space project. It was in your packet that went out. We've been asked by it was, as I said, eligibility form received. We were asked by the folks who submitted it to hold off till September to discuss it, or make a decision, because one of their key people couldn't make it tonight. Which is fine, and I would encourage folks to agree with me to hold off. What it is, in another nutshell, we're giving you folks, there's a group of concerned citizens at the NIP, and I think Pat Neary's here. Pat, are you still here? Yeah, she is. Who have looked into the possibility of, and this is where it's complex, Pat, for everybody, is that one part of the eligibility form, which was in everybody's packet, the first part says, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically to research the possibility. Couple pages later, it said looking for partners to purchase the land. My guess is because of the dollar amount, it's to purchase the land. One of the things to note, there are complexities in that eligibility. One of the things to note, and I'm surmising what the committee's intent is. However, someone can request CPA funds for property they don't own. Okay, so in this case, the town would have to acquire the property before CPA funds could be granted. So that's a thing. There are complexities. I did write later this afternoon to Melissa and said that I would have no problem holding off the main part of the discussion until September. Any thoughts on that? Oh, what it is, they're proposing, if you're in the NIP parking lot and you're facing the water, there's a house to the left. It's kind of hidden by brush now, even driving down Pleasant Street. What this group of folks, and I commend them for their effort on this, is for the town to purchase that land and some other parcels from Mr. Connie, who owns the hotels across the street. And, the property he had proposed a restaurant on the lake. So that's what the NIP project is.
Gina, could I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I want to shoot a little straighter than you are right now. Basically, the organization that submitted it, I don't believe is a 503c. I don't believe they own the property, and I don't believe they have talked with the owner of the property that's in question. So basically, I believe that we should never have received an eligibility request from a company or some party that does not own the land or plan to take the land. For example, if one of my neighbors decided that they wanted to build a kiosk on my property and didn't talk to me about it, it could be a bit of a problem. So I think we need to take a step back.
Excuse me, can I interrupt just a minute? I thought all we were talking about tonight was if the project can be postponed till next meeting to discuss. I mean,
Correct.
discussion.
That's what I would like to see.
I'm just trying to
Good
let the
points
committee
out.
know that this is not a legal application. Thank you.
Right, but I would still like to see the main part of the discussion. It was requested of us for a postponement. I had said I had no problem that we would just note that it was being postponed. That knowledge of needing to own the property came to me right before the meeting. I say that we hold
Yeah,
off
that's one of the,
until-
Gina, I think that's one of the problems is this did just come up. And it seems unfair now to be having this discussion when we've already assured Melissa, your email did that the discussion would be postponed.
Let's
Correct.
postpone it. Let's postpone it, but I'm trying to inform people about the basis. So let's postpone it.
That's not
Let's
fair.
I got the floor right now. Thank you. Let's
Okay,
postpone it and have a discussion next meeting.
correct.
Yes.
Correct. That's what I would recommend. I had said that we would postpone it, that I had no problem postponing it. Didn't mean the whole committee would. would agree with that, but that's my thought until the ones that actually put the eligibility form together are able to be at the meeting. I think we should honor her request to postpone. We did hit on a couple highlights for them to think about, which was actually probably more than we should have said tonight. But I would suggest that we hold off on all discussion, further discussion on that until they can be at the September meeting.
Does anybody object to postponing?
Oh, postpone.
Anybody objecting?
Okay, I see a lot of heads shaking no, so nobody disagrees. Okay, so it is postponed till September. Okay, next one is the Housing Authority for Hemlock Drive for windows and exterior improvements. You had that in your packet. And of course, I can't remember off the top of my head how much was the request for that. I'll have to jump back and look. The work is done, is eligible for under the safety aspect of the CPC for housing. It was suggested to us, and it wouldn't affect the eligibility form because yes, it is eligible. It was suggested to us by Stuart Saginaw, who's the head of the CPA for the state, that we do a walkthrough just to make sure it was obviously it's a safety thing if the roof's leaking and the windows are leaking. But just to do a walkthrough just to make sure it's not general maintenance. But that suggestion doesn't affect the eligibility of the grant, the eligibility of the project.
So to try to rephrase that slightly, we have input from the coalition who supports and lobbies and supports us and has many years and many projects under their belt. Their input to us is that this is a likely eligible project because it's dealing with safety issues. It's not like the cooling system that was withdrawn by the Housing Authority because that was simply maintenance. And that's not allowable under Community Preservation Act discussions. If we want to do more due diligence, folks can chime in, or we can vote next week as to eligibility next month, or we can go forward as you guys prefer.
Okay, I think according to Stuart that it is eligible. We can vote it as a maybe and ask for more information, or we can hold off the vote completely. They're looking at their request is for $362,803. And it's to, I'm sorry, Helen, what was that?
I saw a hand come up. Somebody had a comment.
Oh, okay. Let me jump back. I went into their form. Okay. Who has the hand up? Because
I did.
all of a sudden, okay, Maureen, I'm sorry. My
It
thing
was
wasn't scrolled.
more a question to what you said. Did anybody do a walkthrough, or is that something you do after you decide if you want to go with the eligibility?
We haven't done a walkthrough yet. It was recommended to us by Stuart to do a walkthrough to request for the housing
Do you do that
authority.
before the vote or after the vote?
I think we need to do it before the vote. Otherwise, we're voting on something we don't fully know about.
Yeah, exactly.
My opinion is we should do the walkthrough before we vote.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, good points. Any other thoughts on that?
Who would normally take care of maintenance issues for the housing for the Hemlock Drive
The
units?
housing authority?
The housing authority?
Yep.
Yeah.
It does go through DHCD. I'm sorry, it's Stacy.
Okay, thanks, Stacy.
For, I'm sorry, capital projects, capital improvements. There has been some windows that have been replaced. There is noticeable mold, and the trim around the windows inside and out is rotting. So it would be great if everybody did get to do a walkthrough, maybe have some pictures taken. It's possible Colleen might already have some of those available that people could take a peek at.
Okay, great. I'll write to Colleen too, if it's the decision of the CPC to hold off on a vote on the eligibility form until the next meeting, to do a walkthrough first.
I move that we have a walkthrough to ascertain the issues on this project or this application.
Second,
Eligible.
Harry.
Can we
Okay.
discuss this? Can we discuss this motion?
Yep.
I mean, I'm not an expert on safety issues. I mean, don't you think we need to consult someone who can speak to the safety issues here? I mean, we're all amateurs. I certainly could not determine if something is a safety issue.
Maybe we should ask to that question. That's a great question. Maybe we should ask the building inspector to walk through with us.
That's a great idea.
Right, good idea. And I think, as Stacy said, and I believe it's in the eligibility form too, that there is mold, and mold would definitely be a safety issue.
Yeah.
Especially for a senior or anybody that has any breathing issues. Which mold is serious enough anyways, but if you have issues to begin with, it just adds to them. Okay, so we have a motion to, is that to hold off on a vote until after the walkthrough? Is that
Yes,
part of your
I would
motion?
like to add an amendment to that to include the building inspector in our walkthrough
Okay, prior to,
prior to
Prior
any
to-
votes.
okay.
And I second it, and I'll second the add-on.
Great, thank you, Harry. Any more discussion on it? Okay, Josh, roll call, please.
Gina,
Yes,
Carlton. Carlton, you muted. Okay, Harry.
Yes, yes.
Thanks,
Yes,
Carlton. Bill,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
great, thank you. Stacy, I'll send an email to Colleen, letting her know, and also to Michael then, to see if we can get the building inspector with us, but if you can just mention it to her too.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
Great, thank you. For new folks, Stacy is the housing authority
Oh.
representative, or appointee to our committee. Okay. Last but not least, the Methodist Church has a eligibility form in, and I commend Gloria for listening to all this, through everything, for their last form thing to vote on. They have submitted and I'm looking to get the amount, but they have submitted an eligibility form for historic preservation. And the amount, they actually have it in phases. The first phase is for $46,780 for slate roof repairs. It is, I'm looking back to see, the church was built in 1874 with the current building completed in 1914. So it is a historic building. Second phase, phase 1, part B, is exterior and interior building basin repairs for $255,209.
So I don't know that the dollar amount right now has any meaning in terms of eligibility.
True. I'm just reading down.
I-
Phase 2 is
So I want to try to move us forward a little bit. We have
Right.
some very strict requirements when we're dealing with entities that are not part of a town itself. Specifically, churches and separation has gone through the court system, and there was an action taken, I think it was in Acton, that the court had to rule on whether or not replacement of some church or restoration of some church windows, that kind of thing, were in fact eligible. There are, and they, as part of that decision, and we can send this out, Josh, help me remember that we need to send that information out to the committee. Basically, there's a 3-part test that we have to meet in terms of it being eligible for projects like this. And so I'm not ready to make a decision tonight on it. I'm hoping that Gloria can tell us what kind of time frame they're looking for. But basically, we need to do a lot more due diligence on this particular one because it does have some court decisions behind it.
I have not been part of the grant writing, but I was a body available to be here tonight. Basically the structure of a building that has cement has a lifespan of about 50 years. Our building is well over 100. We've had a piece of cement fall, thankfully not on someone, coming off the front of the building. And so that's why we have come, and just like the Congregational church did, to try to get some things that will help preserve this building in the town. So, you know, Carlton, which direction we have to go, and we certainly will be patient to hear whether or not we would even be eligible for any funding. But we appreciate the time and that you take to look over this information and guide us as best you can.
Thank you. Looking at it, and I did read it good when I first received it. My first thought is there's parts of this that would be eligible for CPA funds, depending on the outcome of the 3-point test for churches. There's parts that wouldn't be eligible. But that would be something when it came to the full application that we can break down. They do have it broken into phases, and we could do like the Congregational church and award like phase 1 or phase 2. One thing I would ask, and I'll write back to Sherry, who submitted it, and put the CPC determination as more information needed. One thing I would like to see as part of this more information is prioritize the phases. I mean, she has phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But is one more important? Obviously, the concrete that's falling in, falling apart.
They are in priority.
Right. Are these in priority
They are.
range? Oh, okay, good. Okay, great. Thoughts from other members of the CPC?
I think it's incumbent on the CPC to spell out what the 3-part test is, these 3 criteria to determine if churches meet them or not. maybe that information needs to be on our website or needs to be available in some kind of attachment that we can forward to future applicants from churches. Since we have funded the Congregational church, I'm sure other churches are going to follow suit, as we see with the Methodist Church tonight. And we really want to be upfront and as transparent as we can be. And I think we should start by letting them know what these what this 3-point test is, as handed down from the Acton decision.
Mhm.
I don't even know what they are myself.
Okay, I know one is, and I'm trying to remember all three, but one is.
We don't have to go into the details tonight. We will
Right,
get
but I'm
that information out.
just for a rough idea, just if it's looking for CPC funds when it should be church funds, things like that. If there's religious connotations to the work being done, like you can't replace a stained glass window that has religious something on it. Across the
Iconography.
line. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we have the eligibility form. Do you want to just take a vote and I can send it back to them to say more information? I just hold off and wait to vote until September.
Gina, just to add to the background, just so that people recall that the Unitarian Church also received CPA funds.
That's true.
They were
Yes.
the first the first church applicant in Bridgewater.
Right. Right. Thank you, Arlene. Right. And as I said, looking at their phases, I see things that are eligible. I see things that aren't eligible. So
May I ask a question?
sure.
Gloria, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but the church, the Methodist Church had applied for CPA funds some years ago, but I know that they withdrew the request. I think it was because, I have to think about what it was from. Oh, I know. Whenever this happens, as you heard earlier, there's a deed restriction. And the question then was, the comment, I think I recall, was that the church did not want to have a deed restriction put on the building. So that's something to consider, and let us know as we look at the eligibility.
I do know that they had to find out who could get into the safe deposit box to find the deed. So that's not going to be a problem. You know, when people start passing away and you're not sure who holds the keys to something. But
well, we can go to the registry. We can go to the registry of deeds to find that, in case you don't find it. But the question is, would the church be willing? Should it go forward? Should we find that some parts of it passed? Should you put an application in for some amount of money? And should we recommend it to go forward and the town council approves to go forward with it? Because would the church accept a deed restriction?
I believe that was the big controversy before, and now it's understood that that is part of the agreement.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Right. I believe that I had spoken with a member of the church who had signed the eligibility form. And when she first inquired about CPA funds, I mentioned the restriction. And I believe she said the church was fine with that now. That at one point it was an issue, but now it should be fine. But we can just double check that too. Gloria can double check that.
So do you need a motion to take this up in September or not?
Not if we're just postponing, but if I'm actually sending her thing back for more information, then we should have the vote because it's taking an action on the eligibility form. And I guess I should have said the same thing for the housing authority. But for that, we really didn't need a vote because we did vote to hold off on that. Our eligibility form it's eligible, it's partially eligible, it's not eligible. We need more information.
And I will be quite honest, I have not had any time to dig into this at all at this point, so I'm not prepared to vote one way or the other.
Okay. Other folks, you want to just hold off until September?
Yes, good idea.
I agree.
Okay, good. Okay, I will just convey to Sherry, who had submitted the application, and Gloria, I'm sure we'll update them too. Just looking for more information. I will get out the 3-point test, and Gloria, I'll send you and Sherry a copy of it too, so you can take a look at what we decide on that. And as Carlton said, it goes back to a case in Acton a number of years ago that funds were awarded to the church, and found out that afterwards that they shouldn't have been, because it's the whole separation of church and state. Okay, committee reports, representative reports. I haven't, Gloria, thank you. Well, she just jumped off. I was going to thank her for being here. Reports from what we do in this part, just an update. If there's anything for the committees that you represent that you think we should know might pertain to CPC funds or just updates. I know Harry always gives us updates about conservation and different things he's involved with conservation wise. I do recreation. So anybody, yeah. I'll start for Parks and Recreation. Basically, it's the pickleball courts, and as I mentioned before, they're done. We're just waiting for a final report. The pavilion is done, so we're just waiting for the final report. Harry, anything for Concom?
No, it's slow. With Comcom meetings tomorrow night, the first 2 items are continued. So we got 1 new item coming up for new business. So we'll be in and out in a half an hour.
Okay, good. Not like our meetings, huh? This one's gonna be short though. It's gonna be less than 2 hours. Carlton?
Yeah, as a citizen representative, I'm appointed by the town manager and ratified by the town council. And I need to get reset. Basically, one of the things we are missing on the committee is the housing trust representative. The housing trust is basically non-functional, not even appointed at this point. And so we had a conversation with the town manager yesterday, and we need to have some discussions about how we might want to restructure the administrative code, which defines who's on the CPC. So that's something that's going to come down the road. I don't know what his thinking is, but we are missing a person. We're missing input from one potential committee. And that means that we also put at risk quorum sometimes because we only have 8 members, and thankfully you all have come in tonight. So just to let you know that we may be being asked to look at some administrative code changes. Thank you.
Okay, good. And playing off of that, I want to thank all the CPC members that are here tonight, because as Carlton said, I know he mentioned the housing trust, and we also are missing a planning board person. They're in the process of appointing someone at their September meeting. But I would like to commend all the CPC people that are here tonight. because that's the full complement of our board exclusive of those two positions that are unfilled. So I commend everybody and I thank everybody for being here. So, okay, who else do we have? Bill, anything for?
Nothing to report. We haven't had meetings lately. We've not had any business to conduct, no applications for certificate of appropriateness. We still have issues with enforcement. That will be the bane of our existence and is generally the bane of all HDC's existence. Unless you're in a highfalutin town like Wellesley where they take it as gospel.
Yeah, okay. Who else do we have? Jeff? Anything to add from your committee?
From the Historical Commission, no, not at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maureen?
Well, I'm not quite sure what I would report on, so if it's okay, Eileen, is there something you want to tell them?
No, I don't have anything to report on.
Okay, I guess we're all set.
Okay, good.
We meet tomorrow.
Okay, and I have your agenda because I want to get to that meeting and I have your agenda open on my iPad. So, because usually I remember after the meeting's over. Okay, who am I missing? Stacy?
We actually are off for the summer, and we will be meeting on, I believe, September 15th. So maybe the next meeting I'll have something to report. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Did I miss any? Nope. Okay, public comment. We're losing a lot of our public except for the diehards that are still here. Eileen or Pat, anything? Pat's waving. Anything to add?
No,
Okay, Eileen?
no,
Okay, next meeting is September 28th. It's 6:30 p.m. My guess is that it will still be virtual. I think that's what the committee seems to prefer right now. Any input on that if you want to stay virtual? Okay, don't everybody answer at once.
I wouldn't mind meeting in person, maybe balance it out a bit. It'd be nice to
Okay.
meet everyone.
Right. Good idea. Maybe we could. Well,
I concur with that. I think the September meeting, barring resurgence of some type, that we should meet in person. Josh can tell us whether or not we can put this online. We can have people watch it live, just that we miss some of the external public input. So
I agree with those sentiments. I would like to meet in person.
I'll meet
Okay.
in person.
Sounds good. Josh, can you find us a room for September 28th?
Yep, I will check to make sure that they aren't going to extend the virtual only and let you guys know what room is available.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll get, when we send out the notice, we'll let you know, let everybody know if it's virtual or in person. And it would be nice to meet the folks that I don't know, to meet in person. Actually, I think Stacy's been with us for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months. I've still yet to meet her in real life.
Maybe we should meet on the pickleball court.
That's an idea.
It
Do you
is.
play? Yes.
I
is
have played
Axel-
before. Yes, I have played.
Yeah, okay, we'll get on the pickleball courts. Anybody else is welcome to join us too. Okay, if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
Motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion second. Actually, we had 2 people motioned, so,
I will second.
okay, great. Josh, roll call, please.
Gina,
Yes.
Carlton,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting's adjourned.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you, Gina.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.